so good to have you here, especially if you're here for the very first time. We are gathering in homes, in venues, in our Firestarter churches all over the world. And if you're here for the first time, it's great to have you. My name's Dave.
I'm Saz, and we're excited today because we had our global event called The Cave yesterday. So we're pretty pumped. But first time guests, you are the most important people to us today, and we want to get to know you. So head over to social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever it is. You can ask us questions, you can get to know us, and then we can connect with you.
Absolutely. Like Saz said, yesterday was a significant day for our churches. We gathered all around the world across multiple continents, different time zones for something called The Cave. If you were there, it was absolutely wild, wasn't it? And that envision what God is bringing to our church is absolutely incredible. But if you missed it, you're going to be able to catch up on it online over the next couple of weeks. But one of the things you would have missed is the fact that Academy applications are open right now. And Academy is our year-out course for leadership, and it's an incredible thing. And if you've never heard what Academy is and you're interested in it, check this out.
In Freedom Church, we are passionate about seeing anyone, anywhere connect to a life-changing relationship with Jesus. That means that we want to share the message of the gospel of Jesus whenever and wherever we can, connecting with the people around us, sharing our faith, discipling others, kicking off Firestarter communities, and even planting churches. Over the years of multiplication, we've learned that all of this is impossible without one crucial resource: leaders. So we've developed a leadership training program called The Academy. The heart of The Academy is to raise and release leaders to fulfill their calling in whatever way God asks them to, whether that means stepping up to take responsibility in their local campus or moving across the world to plant relevant, passionate church in a new place. The Academy program is for 18 to 30-year-olds and runs in Hereford in the UK and Raleigh, North Carolina in the States. It's a 2-day-a-week training program designed to develop leadership by helping you understand your identity and authority, deepen your knowledge of the Bible, grow your confidence, and inspire you towards what God has ahead of you. We talk about pastoral ministry, church planting skills, character development, growing our God-given giftings, and we get even more excited about this beautiful thing called the church. We've seen hundreds of people complete this course. And if you're not close to our Academy locations or you fall outside the age bracket, then we run a condensed course called Academy Plus in some of our locations too. If you're interested in a year of training and growth and friendship and adventure, take a look at our website or have a chat with your leader or campus pastor. If God's been speaking to you about finding your purpose, getting more involved, or just living out the Great Commission in an even stronger way, we would love to meet you.
Academy is absolutely life-changing. It will completely transform you. So get your applications in, or if you want to know some of the finer details, head to our website.
Absolutely. One of the other things that was incredible, so exciting to hear about yesterday, was an update on Firestarter. Now, Firestarter is our vision to help you start churches wherever you are, anywhere around the world, reaching anyone, anywhere, with a life-changing relationship with Jesus. And we had an incredible update about some of the people that are already starting to do this. But we also had an invitation for the whole of us as a church to start spreading the news about Firestarter and helping people that we think might be interested in getting involved. So those of you guys who are at the Cave, you already got the link in your inbox, but we've got a special video that you can share to friends and family, people that you think might be interested in starting a Firestarter church where they are. You can head over to our website and you can check that out and you can get hold of those resources. But today, we've got some more stories to share with you of people who've already had their lives impacted through our Firestarter churches. Check it out.
Hello Freedom Church! Greetings from Germany.
Hi.
This is Malte.
My name is Esther, and we are from Firestarter Rhein-Neckar.
He sparked the fire for his church and the people again, which was kind of glowing before, I would say. And it's so encouraging to be around people with the same hunger and passion for God.
Hi, I'm Tracy and I'm part of Tonnerevel Firestarter Church. I really do believe there's a purpose and a plan with me meeting Dawn and being part of Tonnerevel Firestarter Church and the other ladies. I do believe God's got something in this.
Hello, I'm Denise Zesse from Freedom Sunset, and I'm grateful because I'm building a personal relationship with God.
This is Greg and Eva from Portland Firestarter in the UK. and we just love being a part of Freedom Church, and it's completely impacted us and our family. We've been so encouraged and spurred on.
Yeah, we want to relentlessly reach our friends and family all over Portland and beyond.
And to fall more and more in love with Jesus and to do what he wants us to do. And it's including a lot of our creativity.
So Freedom Church Kampala Firestart has changed my life in regards to the zeal I had for church. Now, I didn't know this was actually a DNA, and that is wildfire expressing inwardly what God has done outwardly. It was the energy, the excitement, the enthusiasm, and the expectation everyone had for the Word of God, and that was for the praise and worship as well, and the programs happening around church. I thought to myself, I want to be a part of something like this, something transforming, something contagious, and that has really changed my life.
Man, it's so awesome to hear about lives being transformed through Firestart already. So church, let's get the word out. Get sharing that link with friends and family. You know, people maybe you went to university with years ago, perhaps you met on holiday once. Who knows? Maybe, just maybe, God is calling them to start a Firestart church and see lives transformed where they are.
Another thing we heard about yesterday was our 1 by 1.
Come on.
And that is our vision as a church to be generous outside of the walls of our buildings. So you're going to hear a little bit now from Meg, who heads up 1 by 1, about what we can be doing to be involved.
Come on.
So today I'm really pleased to let you know that we are launching a fundraising pack that will give you everything you need to fundraise for 1 by 1 and our amazing charity partners. You can head to onebyOnefunds.org/fundraising and download the pack today. And we are going to have an LFDE theme to our fundraisers over the next 12 months. So if you're keen to fundraise for 1 by 1 and you've always wanted to do something a little bit crazy, maybe that's a new haircut or a skydive or an open water swim, whatever that might be, we want to encourage you to do that and plan that in over the next 12 months. Our fundraising pack is going to help you do that because within it contains a fundraising sheet, social media posts, a digital and a printable brochure for you to give to people who are interested, and a t-shirt design so that you can proudly represent 1 by 1 on top of the mountain or in the middle of whatever ocean you're swimming in. We really want to encourage as many people as possible to get involved and plan an LFDE fundraiser over the next 12 months. And if you are planning one, we would absolutely love to hear from you. Why don't you email us at inquiries@onebyOnefunds.org so that you can tell us all about your plans so that we can get behind you and support you the best way we can. And as well as our LFDE fundraiser, we are going to be doing a specific fundraiser for our friends Justice Rising, who are funded through our Future Fund. As you will have heard, the recent volcanic eruption in Goma has devastated 2 Justice Rising schools and caused significant damage to a couple of other schools in that region as well. We want to get behind Justice Rising and help them rebuild the schools that have been damaged in Goma. And so in the middle of September, we are going to be doing a run for Goma. You can run a 5K, a 10K, maybe even a half marathon or a marathon to help raise funds specifically for our partner Justice Rising to help them rebuild the future of Goma in the communities that they serve.
Man, we are so excited about the vision of 1 by 1. We really know that God has called us as a church to change lives through generosity. So guys, let's sign up, let's get the word out there. It's such an amazing thing to be part of a church where there's so many things going on, especially the brand new vision that we heard yesterday. Soul Winds, come on! The call of God for us to reach the world through creativity. In a little bit, Josh is going to be sharing a bit more about Salt Winds and what that vision is all about. But first, we're going to worship. And so wherever you are, come on, let's bring our passion. Let's celebrate what God is doing. Let's give him the praise. And then let's get ready to hear from Josh today.
2, 3, 4. Saturday was silent. Surely it was through. Since when has impossible ever stopped you? Woo! Go! The Friday's disappointment, the Sunday's empty too. Since when has impossible ever stopped you? sound of dry bones rattling. This is a praise, make a dead man walk again. Open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. This is the sound of dry bones rattling. Pentecostal fire, stirring something new. You're not gonna run out of miracles anytime soon. Yeah, resurrection power runs in my veins too. Yeah, I believe there's another miracle here in this room. This is the sound of dry bones rattling. This is the praise that the dead man walk again. Open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. This is the sound of dry bones rattling. And my God is able to save and deliver and heal and restore anything that He wants to. And just ask the man who was thrown on the bones of Elisha if there's anything that He can do. Just ask the stone that was rolled at the tomb in the garden. What happens when God says to move? I feel Him moving it now. I feel Him doing it now. I feel Him doing it now. Doing now. Doing now. This is the sound of dry bones rattling. This is the praise make a dead man walk again. Open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. This is the sound of dry bones One, two, three, four, five, six. God of Abraham, you're the God of covenant and faithful promises. Time and time again, you have proven to do just what you say. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll remain steadfast and let my heart learn when you speak a word, it'll come to pass. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting sun, I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me. Come on, we sing God from age to age. God from age to age, though the earth may pass away, your word remains the same. The history can prove there's nothing you can do. Your faith put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. And I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me.
Is your faithfulness to me? Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me.
I was just a drifter on a lonely sea, lost with no direction, until you said follow me. And now I've seen redemption, I've seen what you can do. You fill my heart tide is turning. I see the lost returning way after way. I see the tide is turning. I see the lost returning way after way. I see the tide is turning. We won't be silent. How could we, when our God has set us free? We'll be relentless in reaching for your name. We won't be silent. How could we, when our God has set us free? We'll be relentless in reaching for your name. 'Cause you said go, so we'll go. You said run, so we'll run. Hearts ablaze, you're the flame that leads us on. You said lay down all, so take this heart and soul. I give my all to see your kingdom come. Give my all to see your kingdom come.
The world began with the waters. As the Spirit hovered, the Word commanded. Tides changed and pulled forth coasts, valleys and mountains, and on that land, life, abundant life. The sea is forever a method of shaping and remaking. As the water crashes, the spray of salt is hurled heavenwards, this unseen seasoning carried by new waves through the skies and carried on the wind. Beyond the walls of church buildings, a digital cathedral is being constructed. It is shaped by the Holy Spirit's salt onto screens and into people's senses. Digital declarations through creativity, through color, as we share God's imagination. Moving moments of music, drama, comedy, and calamity for Christ, bringing the gospel in ways never seen and further than it's ever been. This is the salt that will bring the taste of heaven to earth, drifting on the winds of change where the battle truly rages. We're called to create, to make and reimagine, to raise a new voice, to set a new scene for people to believe. For Jesus will return when all have heard, so now it's our turn. We will throw salt into the wind, to season the sea and skies, to reshape the landscape of a world so lost. This is Salt Winds.
Hello and welcome. It's great to be with you here after the cave. Wow, what an amazing weekend. And I'm recording this before, but I say that in faith because I know every time that we gather for the cave, God moves so powerfully. And I have a little bit of an insight of some of the vision we're sharing this year. And I'm so excited to see how God is going to unfold this Salt Winds vision through our church. I want to talk to you a bit about today this daring dreamer concept that we tapped at the cave, that we started to unravel, that we started to go through, because that is something that's so precious to my heart. I grew up somewhere called Leominster, in a little town in England, and it is not a place that you would say that's where all the daring dreamers come from, Leominster. It's not really got that kind of reputation. And in fact, when I was growing up, we had our next door neighbour, and they were just salt of the earth people, brilliant, loving, kind. And we would go over there every week, and they almost became like extra grandparents for us, as me and my brothers. And we used to go and spend time with them, and they were like family. It was so great. But one of the things that I noticed as I started to grow up through the years is that this guy, he would stay the same year after year. In fact, he would still have the same clothes. Even now, he's got the same hat that he wore when I was a kid. He does the same things with his time. It's like kind of clockwork. So he would always be going to the shops at the same time. He'd eat the same things for dinner every day. And even I remember going back, they would bring us back to our mum and dad's house in the car, and we listened to the same songs every week. And these were the songs that he'd been listening to since he was a young man. And they were brilliant people, but he had got stuck into a rhythm. He got stuck into living in just one way. And he never left the town. Sometimes it'd be really wild and venture out to Hereford, the big city, 13 miles away. But otherwise, his whole life revolved around this very small community. He had the same hobbies and same things that he had been doing for decades. And I think if you look around in your life, you probably know someone like this in your life. Someone that has somehow their life just kind of got the same year after year, even decade after decade, where they didn't move on in their lives. What happened? How did that happen? What happens to a person where they go from maybe being a teenager and being in their early 20s to having these dreams about what they want to do with their lives? And how do they get to this place where actually the same thing happens every day, every week? They never go anywhere other than the immediate circle that they have. I want to put to you that the reason I think that can happen to humans all across the world is that we stop dreaming. And when you stop dreaming, your world begins to shrink. I kind of think of it like a balloon. And if you've got a balloon and you start to blow into it, it expands. And that's what having dreams, that's what having vision is like. Your whole world expands. But when you stop dreaming, it starts to deflate and your world becomes smaller and smaller. And I think if I said, who are the people in your life that have got the smallest worlds? You know, it's the smallest things that bother them or that upset them, or they become obsessed with the things that you would not even give a second thought about. It's because their worlds have become small. What is it? It's because they stopped dreaming. And I believe that the people of God all around the world watching this, we are called to be dreamers. We're called to be daring dreamers. That dreams, they propel us forward into what God's called us to. I want to share these verses with you that Peter shares in Acts 2 verses 17 to 18. It says, in the last days, God says, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy, your young men will see visions, your old men will dream dreams. Even on my servants, both men and women, I will pour out my spirit in those days, and they will prophesy. There's this sign, there's this amazing thing that's happening with the church, that as the Spirit is being poured out, so dreaming is happening, visions are happening. And I'm not just talking about the dreams that we have at night that sometimes we can just relate to, wow, I had a bit too much funky cheese last night because my dreams are all over the place. I'm talking about the God dreams, the dreams that God places within our hearts and minds, sometimes when we're asleep, sometimes when we're awake. But the dreams that God has placed within each one of us, they come through the pouring out of His Spirit. I think about how dreams, they propel breakthrough. All around the world, there have been things that humanity has just accepted, and the dreamers, they find a way to push forward, to overcome, to prepare something new for the world. And they do it through their dreams. I think of the Wright brothers here in North Carolina. It's famous for the Wright brothers being the first in flight. And there was a belief that man could not fly, that it seemed ridiculous, laughable. But the Wright brothers had a dream. They thought, no, man can fly, and we just need to keep working and keep imagining until we see it happen. And now we've got people flying all over the world, and they don't give a second thought about it. But once upon a time, it seemed impossible. Then there's Alexander Graham Bell. He was the inventor of the telephone. The dream that you could be having a conversation with someone where you weren't in the same room. That you could prepare this communications device. Just extraordinary imagination and dreaming. And what again seemed like magic, what would seem as it being impossible, came into reality. I think of Martin Luther King Jr. His famous speech was, "I had a dream." And this dream was to see civil rights for all people here in the USA. And the dream that Martin Luther King Jr. had, it came to pass. Again, all of these things, they seemed impossible. They seemed things that were out of reach. But that's what dreams do. They connect us to something that's beyond what we have accepted. But those are grand and exciting and inventive dreams. But what about in our own context here in Freedom Church? Well, if you're watching this video today, it's because we've got a dreamer of a senior pastor. He dreamed that we could be impacting the world, and it's blown us all across the world to be impacting others. I think of when we released the 10-fold vision, it was a wild and audacious dream. It seemed something that was not possible in so many ways, and yet God delivered. God came through for us as we sought out this dream. We saw it become a reality. And so we've got people today sitting in some of those 10 churches that we planted over those 4 years. Then I think of even something very personal, but people who had that dream of having their own child, biological child, but were told by their doctors and medical experts that it wasn't going to be possible, or it was going to be very difficult. And then you sit there today perhaps with that child in your arms, with you, that child who's come with you to church today, that was a dream that became a reality. And I think that dreams, they go beyond what is accepted. That's why dreams are so amazing. They go beyond people's expectations, they go beyond our parameters, and they reach into another realm and they bring it into reality. I love that about dreams. It changes and reshapes the landscapes around us. So as we talk about dreams, for me, I can't move past any further than probably the most famous dreamer in the Bible, Joseph. And if you don't know about Joseph, he was one of 12 brothers. He was one of the youngest brothers. He was 11 in the 12. And he was the favorite son. And as you can imagine, in a family, that caused some tension. And his brothers didn't greatly like him. But when he was still a young man, he had this dream where he saw his brothers symbolically bowing down to him. And he decided to tell his brothers that dream. Now, if you've got siblings, you can imagine how this went down. Not too well. They hated him for it, and in fact, they hated him so much that they decided to kill him. They decided not to go that far after starting to feel a bit guilty, thankfully. So they decided instead to sell him into slavery. So Joseph ends up being sold into slavery and going into Egypt, where he finds himself serving in one of the commander's houses of Pharaoh. And there he does very well, and he's like working his way up in his job, taking on more responsibility. But he finds himself falsely accused of a serious crime. And because of that false accusation, Joseph gets thrown into prison. So not only has he been hated by his own family, he's then been sold into slavery, and then he gets falsely accused and thrown into prison. This guy does not have a good run of luck. But in those years of prison, after being there for a significant amount of time, Joseph meets some of the other prisoners, and he gets this reputation for being an interpreter of dreams. And so one of the other prisoners, they are released from prison, and they go back to Pharaoh's side as the cupbearer. And after a few years have gone by, Pharaoh has these most extraordinary dreams that we're just going to look at in just a moment. And all the magicians and all the wise men and all the land get called to try and interpret these dreams, and no one's got a clue what on earth these dreams could mean. And that's when the cupbearer remembers his interaction with this Israelite prisoner, with Joseph. And so arrangements are made for Joseph to come before the Pharaoh, come before the king, and see if he can interpret the dream. So in Genesis 41, verses 14 to 16, it says, "So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought from the dungeon. When he'd shaved and changed his clothes," because you've got to look good for Pharaoh, he came before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream and no one can interpret it. But I've heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." Joseph replied to Pharaoh, "I cannot do it, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." The first point I want to make to you from these scriptures in Genesis is that realizing our dreams is not a skill venture, it's a faith venture. Very quickly, Pharaoh's like, "I hear you can do this." And Joseph has the brave courage to come through him to say, "Actually, let me just correct you there. I know we've only just met, but let me just put you right on this. It's nothing to do with me. It's God in me. It's God that will interpret your dream." And he immediately gives God the glory. Joseph understands that this is not about his ability and his skill. This is about faith. This is about God. At the cave this year, if you weren't there, we had the most extraordinary download of vision about salt winds. Our dream to realize creativity throughout the world to communicate the gospel, to raise up artists and actors and producers and writers to be able to take stories that are going to talk about who Jesus is, to talk about the hope that we have, to talk about our faith. So when we first had this vision, when this dream was birthed in our hearts, it's like it's wild, it's audacious, it's beyond any capacity or ability that we could possibly have. But it's not about us. It's about God in us. It's about his ability. It's about his favor. It's about his grace. And that's where we get our confidence from. If it was our own ability, there's no way that you'd be having those kinds of dreams. But when you start thinking about salt winds in the context of knowing that God can do anything when we make ourselves available, that changes the game. So we're now going to read from Genesis 41 verses 17 to 21. "Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, 'In my dream I was standing on the bank of the Nile, when out of the river there came up 7 cows, amphibious cows.'" So it was already, the dream's getting weird, okay? "Fat and sleek, and they grazed among the reeds. After them 7 other cows came up, scrawny and very ugly and lean. I'd never seen such ugly cows in all the land of Egypt. The lean, ugly cows ate up the 7 fat cows that came up first. But even after they ate them, no one could tell that they'd done so. They just looked as ugly as before. Then I woke up." And then he has this other dream that is all about grain, and it's exactly the same principle that happens. And my point that I want to make to you about the crazy cow dream is sometimes our dreams sound weird to others. Have you ever shared a dream that's in your heart to someone and they'd be like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And you know, they just get a little bit higher in the voice because they can't really understand what you're talking about. I think of all the magicians and wise men that came before Pharaoh. I'd be like, "Right, and you want us to make that something, like mean something out of this dream? Okay, you're gonna have to leave that one with us." I mean, for a start, the cows are eating other cows. As far as we know, cows don't eat cows. I think it's just, you know, they just like to eat grain and things and grass. But no, here they are eating each other. I mean, it's a pretty crazy dream. And I want to just say to you, right, if you have a dream that's within your heart, when you have a dream, it's like a precious seedling bursting through the soil. is that it's most vulnerable when it first breaks through. So you've got to treat it with vulnerability. You've got to treat it with care, not just kind of walking around showing it to whoever you can. There's something about guarding it, allowing it to grow, allowing it to take root, because sometimes our dreams aren't going to be able to relate to the people in the way that God has revealed it to us. So you have to choose where to share it at the right time with the right people. Then in Genesis 41 verses 25 to 32, it says, "Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he's about to do. The 7 good cows are, and 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. It is one and the same dream. The 7 lean, ugly cows that came up afterwards are 7 years. And so are the 7 worthless heads of grain scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. It's just as I said to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he's about to do. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will follow them. Then all the abundance in Egypt will be forgotten, and the famine will ravage the land. The abundance in the land will not be remembered, because the famine that follows it will be so severe. The reason the dream was given to Pharaoh in 2 forms is that the matter has been firmly decided by God, and God will do it soon." So that's the next point I want to make to you, that God uses our dreams to bring kingdom revelation. That Joseph is interpreting the dream of Pharaoh, say this is something that God is about to do. And I think of when we pray the Lord's Prayer that Jesus taught us to pray. It says, "Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." That what is happening in heaven is God's will. And we are calling those things from heaven to earth. And that's what dreams are doing. They're bringing kingdom revelation. They're bringing God understanding to earth. It's like, who do we really think came up with man being able to fly? Who do we really think came up with the telephone? Who do we think came up with the internet? All of these revelations came from God whispered dreams that he sowed into human hearts. That God uses dreams to come and sow into his people the things that he wants to do. I think of a good friend of mine, George Downs. He works for our church doing videography, but God placed in his heart to write music that would impact people. Not just worship music, but music that you could hear on the radio, music that would sound like that you were just putting it on your playlist, and yet it's got an important kingdom truth that is going to speak about the value of human life, that is speak about love, to speak about who God is. So he's doing that through the Sign of Angelo. If you haven't heard it, you need to check it out. Go and look that up. So George had a dream to write an album, but that album is bringing kingdom revelations through people's earphones, on the radio, wherever they are, listening in the gym, whatever it might be, where it's not church music, but it's truth of God that is making them think and consider godly things. In Genesis 41 verses 33 to 36, it says, "And now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take 1/5 of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these good years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh to be kept in the cities for food. This food should be held in reserve for the country to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the country may not be ruined by the famine." So this next point I want to make to you is that every dream needs a plan. This phenomenal kingdom revelation that comes to Joseph and then to Pharaoh, it's not any good without a plan. It's like, oh, well, we know that there's a famine coming, so quick panic. Everyone run, let's sacrifice to God and see if he'll reverse the famine. No, there's a plan that goes with the dream. And you'll know that if you've had a dream, that it's not much good until it comes to life through a plan. I remember when we had the Salt Winds Vision come at our leadership time away, January 2020, It was so wild and audacious and so big and broad and world-changing. We just put it in the dream box for a while and we didn't touch it. We talk about it now and again, but we didn't know what to do with the dream. And then a few months ago, as we were starting to head to the cave and knew, right, we've got to start telling our church, we've got to start discharging what God's put in our hearts as a leadership team. I got it out the dream box and I talked about it with my great planner of a wife, Rose. And we started to take this raw material of a dream and we started to take the hammer to it. And we hammered it into a plan and we hammered it into a structure. And we started to put together an idea of what this grand dream could look like as its next steps. Because the only dreams that matter are the ones that are made into plans. Those dreams that remain just in your heart, they will eventually dissolve. And maybe God will give that dream to someone else and hope that they will turn it into a plan, that they will steward it. But the only dreams that matter are the ones that we turn into something, that we hammer them out, that we put the work in, that we make a plan. And it doesn't matter how small or big the dream is, because they all require the same thing, a next step, a foot forward. What is the next step that the dream requires of you? So verses 37 to 41, it says, the plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all his officials. So Pharaoh asked them, can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God? This is Pharaoh. He doesn't profess that Yahweh is his God, that he believes in God the Father, and yet he recognizes that the true and living God's Spirit is in this man. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. Quite extraordinary. What an amazing thing that happens to Joseph. He goes from being in the prison to being in the palace. What a day for him, what a turnaround. He's woken up that morning and he's ended up being a prisoner, and then he goes on to becoming one of the most powerful people other than Pharaoh in the whole of Egypt, all within one day. Wow, that is the power of having a dream and having a plan coming together. And you'll remember when I introduced Joseph, I said about the dream that he had as a young man, that he told his brothers, that it had angered them so much that they'd sold him into slavery. And he saw them bowing down. Now the famine came, they had the years of plenty, and then they had the years of famine, and the famine came to the surrounding countries too. And so his own family suffered, but Egypt had become this great resource for all the surrounding nations because they'd saved their grain, because God had instructed Joseph to do so. And so his brothers come before him, and unknowingly, they don't realize that Joseph is standing before them. They just see an Egyptian authority. They bow down before him, and his dream is a reality right in front of his eyes. I want to say to all you dreamers that you have to trust God's timing with your dreams. Because Joseph was around 17 when he had this dream, and this is decades later. He told his brothers, and it seemed wild, it seemed inconceivable, it did not seem possible, and then decades later, he saw the dream come to pass. That we have to trust God's timing with our dreams. Maybe God is stirring your heart with a dream right now. It might not happen tomorrow, but there is something about having the patience and the faithfulness to hold on to the dream that He's given you. So as we think about how this applies to your life, I just want to pull out this line that Pharaoh says in Genesis. He says, can we find anyone like this man whom is the Spirit of God? If you want to be a dreamer, maybe you're dry today, maybe you haven't dreamed for a long time, maybe there are dreams in you that have just gathered dust, that you just gave up on. And God is wanting you to take those dreams off the shelf today. He's wanting to restir your heart. How do you get to that place? How do you revive yourself to be a dreamer again, to be a daring dreamer? The first of all is this: you've got to recognize that we're vessels that receive these dreams. We're vessels where God places the dreams, these gold, this treasure within us. And first of all, the vessel needs to be clean. If there is sin in your life, if there are things that should not be happening in your life, and then you want to be a daring dreamer, the first thing you've got to do is clean out the vessel. Deal with the sin. Confess it to someone. Repent from it. That means turn away from the sin. Don't just confess it and then go back to it the next week, but turn away from it. Change your life and receive His forgiveness. Clean the vessel so that you can then, second of all, receive His Spirit. Allow yourself to be filled with His Spirit. And as you're filled with His Spirit, He will fill you with the dreams that He has for you, and the dreams that He wants to pass through you, the things that He wants to happen in your hands, in your life. And I want you to think about what you absorb. Just think about this person, right? The person that is consumed by social media, the person that is consumed by TV and watching series and films, and then the person that is consumed with worship, the person that is consumed with the presence of God, with prayer, with reading His Word and meditating on it day and night, as we heard from Dave Thomas the other week. Who out of those two people is going to have God dreams coming into their spirit? It's the one that has absorbed His presence, that has absorbed His Spirit, that is eating and consuming the things of God. If you want the things of God to be birthed in you, these dreams that will change the world, that will impact others, then you've got to come and absorb of God. You've got to come and absorb of His Word. And then His dreams will be birthed in your heart. So I want to ask you these questions as we finish up today. What dreams are within you? What dreams are within you? What is God birthing even now? What is God stirring in you? Second of all, what plans do you need to make? Maybe that dream's been in your heart for a while, but you've not done anything about it. Now is the time to make a plan. Bring some structure. If you're not a planner, maybe you need to talk it through with someone and hammer it out, but bring the dream into a plan. And then thirdly, consider the sacrifice that your dream requires. Joseph had this grand dream about his brothers bowing down before him, but it didn't come until he was hated by his brothers. It didn't come until he was sold into slavery. It didn't come until he spent a decade in prison. And then another further over a decade serving by Pharaoh's side. It took years and years. It took years of sacrifice. It cost him, but he saw the dream come to pass. Your dream will require sacrifice. All the times that the Wright brothers, they tried to get a plane into the sky and it failed, and they changed and they tried again and they tried again. Every single dream that people have had through the history of humanity, it doesn't just come. It requires sacrifice. It requires energy. It requires cost. Are you willing to pay the price of the dream that God places within your heart? And as we close out today, I just want us to imagine a church, a community like ours, where we are full of daring dreamers, where we have the courage to take these things that God has placed within our heart and turn them into plans, to be willing to pay the sacrifice, to see them come to life. Wow, the community that we're going to impact, the people around the world that will see Jesus because of the dreams that we had. Maybe it's something in Saltwinds. Maybe it's a story that you'll write. Maybe it's a children's TV show that you'll craft. Maybe it's something completely different that God's called you to. But there are dreams within you that will impact others. And church, I urge you to dare to dream, to dare to bring those dreams to life. Because when we do, we'll impact the world around us. We'll impact our communities, our cities, and beyond more than we could ever ask or imagine. So church, I pray as you receive this message today, may your spirit be stirred in the name of Jesus. and may you dream and then dare to live it out. Amen.